He lived where the land stayed wide and quiet. The mornings came slow, and the evenings stayed long dust. Moved with the wind, and the sky felt close enough to touch people. Saw him ride out early and return late. They thought he was only a working cowboy, man who fixed fences, fed animals, and slept when the stars were high. No one guessed how heavy his past really was. He kept to himself by choice, because he disliked people, but because words often opened doors he had locked long ago when others talked. About dreams he stayed silent. When laughter filled the air, he smiled softly and looked away. He had learned how to hide pain behind routine long ago. His life had looked very different. He once stood in rooms filled with voices and plans lands stretched. Farther than the eye could follow, money came easily, and choices came fast. But with wealth came pride, and with pride came distance. He thought strength meant control. He believed protection came from power. Then loss arrived without warning. It came like a storm that did not ask permission. One moment his family felt safe. The next moment, everything cracked. A single event changed the shape of their day's health. Faded trust broke in the home that once felt strong became fragile in those days money failed. Hymn doctors spoke softly and shook their heads. Friends stopped calling when hope grew thin. He'd watched fear live in the eyes of the people he loved most for the first time he felt small for. First time wealth meant nothing when the worst night finally passed. He made a choice that surprised everyone. He walked away from his fortune not because he lost it, but because it reminded him of what he could not save. He signed papers and stepped into silence. He chose distance over comfort, work over memory. Land he moved to was rough and honest. Did not care who he used to bait. Ground demanded effort and patience. Animals responded only to calm. Hands days were earned through sweat, nights came with tired bones. In that place he learned how to breathe. Again his family stayed close. Though changed, they carried scars that did not show on skin. Some days were good, some days felt heavy, but they faced each sunrise together. That was enough for him. He never spoke about his past when asked. He simply said he was lucky to be their people, accepted that answering small towns' questions fade quickly. Everyone carries something they do not share. Time moved forward slowly, seasons changed, and so did his face lines formed from sun and thought. His hands grew rough, but steady. Children in the area waved as he passed, elders nodded with respect. He became part of the background, a quiet figure moving with purpose yet. Inside he stayed alert. He watched his family closely. Any sign of weakness pulled his attention. Any cough or silence made his chest tightened. Fear had taught him vigilance. One afternoon trouble returned without warning. Moments small at first grew serious fast. Began as a simple need turned urgent. The family required help beyond his strength. He searched for options but found money could have solved it once. Now it was out of reach. Pride told him to handle it alone, but reality spoke louder. Stepped into town seeking assistance. Each door closed gently, not from cruelty, but from limitation. People wanted to help but could not. As the sun dropped low, he sat outside a modest place feeling empty. That was when someone noticed him, not the cowboy, not the past, but the worry. A woman approached slowly. She did not rush or question. She simply asked if he was all right. Her voice carried calm, not curiosity. He hesitated before answering, then spoke honestly. She listened without interruption. No judgment crossed her face. She did not ask for names or reasons. She only focused on the problem within. Moments she offered help, not solutions that required money, but care that required effort. He was surprised by her willingness. Strangers rarely give without conditions, yet she asked for nothing. She followed him back to his world, stepping into responsibility without fear. That day marked the start of change, though neither of them knew if the cowboy believed he had found temporary relief. Did not realize he had met someone who would reshape his future. As night settled, he watched her work beside his family. Gentle, steady, and patient, he felt something unfamiliar. Not hope, but gratitude. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to believe that help could come without cost. Kindness still existed beyond contracts and promises. The land grew quiet again, but the silence felt different. It no longer pressed on his chest. Instead, it waited as if something new was preparing to begin. Days turned into weeks, and the woman stayed close. She did not make demands. She did not seek attention. She moved with purpose and quiet strength. Cowboy watched carefully from a distance, learning small details about her. How she spoke softly to children, how she noticed what needed to be done before anyone asked how. She treated animals with care. He found himself relying on her more than he expected, not for the heavy tasks alone, but for guidance in moments he felt lost. The family responded to her presence as if they had known her for years. Laughter returned in small doses. Health seemed easier to manage. Evan, the air felt lighter. She asked few questions about his past. When he offered none, she accepted silence that surprised him. Most people demanded stories. They judged or tried to fix problems they did not understand. She did not. Her attention stayed on the immediate need. She reminded him of the value of patience. He began to understand her nature. Her heart did not seek recognition. Her actions came from belief in doing the right thing. Every movement seemed intentional. Every choice considered. He realized she had strength he had never met. One afternoon, the cowboy found her sitting by the edge of the field. Her hands were tired, but her eyes stayed bright. She looked up and smiled softly. He felt compelled to speak. He shared small details about his family, about challenges he had tried to hide. She listened, without interrupting, without offering solutions, just understanding. Her presence became a steady rhythm. Days started with her and ended with her work alongside his family. In moments of quiet, he noticed small gestures, a hand on a shoulder, a glance that showed attention, a gentle correction when something could go wrong. These moments built trust, not the words he once used to measure people, but trust measured in actions. The cowboy began to feel a weight lift, not the weight of work, not the weight of responsibility, but the weight of fear. For the first time, he could breathe without constant tension. He began to think about life beyond survival, life where people could rely on each other without money being the foundation. She shared nothing of her own past. She did not boast of previous successes. She did not speak of hardships. She simply acted with clarity and honesty. Her humility made him question everything he believed about strength. He wondered why some people carried power quietly while others displayed it loudly. Small victories became meaningful. A meal prepared when no one had energy to cook, a broken fence repaired before animals escaped, children learning new skills, health slowly improving. Every achievement reinforced the quiet bond forming between them. He started to notice how much he cared for her opinion before he had dismissed others. Celine, now her thoughts mattered. Her observations shaped his decisions. Her kindness challenged his pride. He felt conflicted, wondering how to express gratitude without exposing too much. She never expected anything. No payment, no promises, no future acknowledgement, just action, just care. This confused him. He had lived in a world where everything came at a price. Now he realized that some things existed without cost. One evening, the sun sank low, and he found himself walking beside her. He did not speak much. Words felt unnecessary. The sound of their steps on dry ground carried enough conversation. Began to feel that trust could exist quietly, that a connection could grow from shared effort and attention, not declarations or contracts. He started to notice details about her life, small routines. The way she organized tasks, the way she remembered small preferences of the family. He realized she had an inner order that created peace around her without her. The household felt chaotic at times. As the days passed, he felt his past become less pressing, not erased but softened. Memories of wealth and loss no longer dominated his thoughts. Instead, he focused on the present, the real work of helping those who depended on him. With her guidance and example, the family began to thrive. Slowly, health improved. Children smiled. The land seemed to respond to the calm presence she brought. The cowboy marveled at her impact. It was subtle yet powerful, and he felt a growing respect he had never felt for anyone. He began to think differently about help. He had always believed that help required payment or sacrifice. Now, he realized it could come from a simple choice to act with care. Her actions were proof that small, consistent efforts created large results. Night after night, he watched her, not with desire, but with wonder. He realized her presence filled gaps he did not know existed, gaps left by loss and solitude, by hardship and self-imposed isolation. He realized he was learning from her. The woman never spoke of obligation. She only spoke of what could be done now, how the next day could be managed, how comfort and care could be provided. He saw a person who measured life by action, not words, and he began to aspire to be the same. Through her actions, she showed that courage was not lauded, was quiet, steady, and persistent, that strength was measured not by what you owned, but by what you gave without thought of return. The cowboy felt the shift inside, a softening that had not existed before. He felt gratitude growing, not the fleeting kind that fades quickly, but deep gratitude. Gratitude that changed how he viewed his family. Gratitude that reshaped how he thought about his own choices. He knew he wanted to honor her presence, though he did not yet know how. Weeks passed and small crises came and went. Times she handled things with patience. She caved without hesitation. Each time she reminded him that humanity could be more than survival. He began to think that maybe the world could be good, not because of money or power, but because of people like her. He kept watching, quietly learning, silently feeling something unfamiliar, a sense of hope, belief that kindness mattered more than wealth, that a single person could change the course of many lives without expectation, without displace, simply through care and determination. By the time the season shifted, he realized he could no longer view her as just a helper. She had become central to their lives. She had saved his family in ways he could not measure. He began to feel indebted, not in a material way, but in a human way. He owed her trust and attention. He owed her recognition of the life she had rebuilt. He thought about telling her the truth about his past, about the fortune he left behind, but he hesitated. He feared that revealing everything might ruin the simplicity, might turn trust into judgment, might make her act differently. So he waited. In the meantime, he focused on learning from Heron, following her example, on being better for his family. He noticed how much happier his children were, how calmer the animals were, how lighter the days felt. Hind, for being the quiet force that moved everything forward, her presence remained steady, like the sun over the fields, like the wind through the trees. She never demanded attention or recognition. She simply acted and helped hand. The cowboy slowly understood that some people came into your life to save it, not with money, not with power, but with care. He began to imagine the future differently, not a future built on wealth, not a future built on control, but a future built on trust and action, on mutual support. And slowly he started to allow hope to return, and even though he did not yet know how, he felt a quiet certainty that life could improve, that his family could survive, that kindness could endure, all because of the woman who stayed when others had left, all because of the person who had no need to act but chose to act anyway. As months passed, the cowboy felt the bond with the woman deep in it was not the kind of bond built with words or promises. It was built with shared work and understanding. They did not need to talk about the past or the future. Their attention stayed on the present. The tasks and people that required care. He began to notice how much he valued her opinions. Small decisions became easier when he discussed them with her. The placement of crops, the repair of fences, the care of animals. Her insight made him realize he had overlooked many things. He began to trust her judgment, and he felt a quiet relief in doing so. The family began to thrive under their combined care. Children grew stronger and healthier. Animals became more obedient and happy. The land began to look fuller and more alive. Neighbors noticed the change, but assumed it was the cowboy working harder than before. They did not see the quiet guidance behind the scenes, though. Cowboy observed the woman with attention. He noticed small habits and routines, how she organized tools, how she remembered preferences of the family, how she could calm an anxious animal with a look or a touch. He realized that her presence was teaching him without words. Despite their growing trust, he hesitated to reveal his past. He feared the truth might change her perception. He feared it might place distance between them. He worried that revealing wealth and history might make her act differently. So he remained silent. Actions to speak louder than words. He began to reflect on his own life. He thought about the lessons he had learned from loss, the humility he had gained from stepping away from fortune. He realized that the woman mirrored those same qualities. She acted with care and humility without pride or show on. He admired her for its small moments, became important. Sharing a meal after a long day, repairing a fence together, watching The sun set while the children played nearby. These moments became symbols of connection, symbols of trust and understanding that did not need explanation. He noticed that she never sought credit when the household ran smoothly. She quietly moved to the next task when the animals were healthy. She simply continued her work. Her focus was always on the next need. He realized that her influence was steady and persistent even when unnoticed by others. Times he found himself learning from her, not just practical skills, but ways of thinking, the patience to wait and observe, the wisdom to act only when necessary, the understanding that small, consistent actions create large results. One afternoon he watched her help a sick animal. She did not rush or panic. She examined carefully and adjusted gently. Her hands moved with experience and calm. He realized that strength could be quiet and unseen, did not have to shout or dominate. It could simply exist and be effective. He began to consider how he had measured strength in the past, how he had relied on power and wealth to create respect. Now he saw that true strength came from actions that benefited others, from consistency, patience, and courage. He realized that she had shown him that without intention their bond grew in ways he had not expected. He did not need to speak to feel trusty. He did not need to explain to feel connection. They moved through days as a team without announcing it, and he began to feel a sense of belonging he had not known since the past. Evan, as he grew closer, he remained cautious. He had been hurt before. He had watched people act out of fear or selfishness. He knew that trust could be fragile, so he measured his actions carefully, observed her reactions before revealing more of himself. At the same time, he could not ignore the gratitude he felt, though, feeling that her presence had saved his family, not with money or power, but with care and dedication. He wanted to honor that without overstepping boundaries, and he found ways to show appreciation quietly by ensuring tasks were easier for her, by noticing needs before they became urgent, by sharing responsibilities evenly. As seasons changed, he observed how naturally she adapted. Challenges did not overwhelm her. Obstacles became part of the rhythm. She taught by example rather than words. He learned to apply that to his own life. He reflected on the difference between money and action, how wealth had once defined his value, how it had failed to save his family. Now he saw that dedication and care could achieve more than money ever could. He
realized that her example was worth more than any fortune.
The cowboy also observed how she connected with the children. She taught them gently and patiently. She encouraged curiosity and care. She corrected mistakes without scolding them. She celebrated small achievements. He saw the impact of nurturing and consistency, and he felt respect and admiration grow even stronger. At times he caught himself watching her silently, not out of desire but out of wonder. He marveled at how someone could act so selflessly, how someone could care so deeply without seeking reward. He realized that her presence had changed the rhythm of his household and the rhythm of his own life. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, he felt a quiet certainty that trust could exist without words, that bonds could grow without explanation, that actions could mean more than stories, and that connection could heal wounds that words could not reach. He began to let hope into his life again, hope that the family could survive and thrive, hope that kindness and care could endure, hope that trust and understanding could grow even after hardship. And he silently thanked her for demonstrating it every day through her. He began to see a new vision for the future, not a future built on wealth or status, but a future built on effort, patience, and care, future where people could rely on each other, a future where actions mattered more than words. He realized that she had become central to his life, central to the family, and central to his own growth. She had saved more than the present moment. She had saved the possibility of a better life, and he knew that he could never repay her fully, but he could honor her by living and acting with the same care she had shown. One morning, a stranger arrived in town. The stranger carried news that could not be ignored, spoke of lands once owned and fortunes left behind. The cowboy listened quietly. His heart grew heavy with memories he had tried to leave behind. He thought he could hide from the past forever, but the past had returned. He worried how the woman would react. He feared her opinion might change. He feared that trust could break, but he knew the truth could not remain hidden. It was time to face Ith called her aside. He explained the story he had kept secret, the lands the family had lost, the wealth that had once been theirs, the mistakes made and the lessons learned. He told her, "Everything with honesty, no excuses, no pride, just the truth." The woman listened. Carefully, her eyes did not judge. Her face remained calm. He finished. She paused. Then she spoke. Her words were measured and thoughtful. She acknowledged the truth without condemning him. She reminded him that actions mattered more than wealth and that she had acted out of care, not expectation. He felt a sense of relief. Because he had confessed, but because he had been understood, he realized that sharing the truth did not destroy trust, it strengthened it, because she saw the man behind the past, the one who had survived hardship and learned humility. The family gathered around the children, listened as he spoke. He wanted them to understand resilience and hope. He wanted them to see that mistakes did not define them. The woman stayed near, supporting, silently encouraging. With small gestures, her presence reminded him that the future could be shaped by care and understanding, not just by money or status. He realized how much he had changed since she had arrived. The lessons of patience, consistency, and selfless action had reshaped his life. He no longer feared the past. He no longer measured worth by material successes. Instead, he focused on the present and the people around him. Together, they began to plan, not plans for wealth, but plans for stability and happiness. They worked on the farm to make it stronger, cared for the children to make them confident and healthy. They tended to the animals and land with attention and skill. Every action built a foundation for the future. The cowboy felt gratitude deeply. He wanted to express it in a way that matched her values, not through money, not through gifts. Through dedication and support, he worked harder to ensure tasks were easier for her. He learned to anticipate needs. He tried to create peace and stability in every corner of their lives. Neighbors began to notice changes. The household seemed fuller, more alive, more harmonious. They asked questions and received simple answers. The cowboy did not boast or explain in detail. He let results speak. They reflected the quiet influence of the woman's. Small challenges arose, as always in his sudden storms. Tasks too heavy for one person, but together they faced them calmly. Problems were solved with steady effort, not panic, not displete. Victory strengthened trust and confidence. Began to see that his life had returned to purpose, not because of wealth or power, not because of pride or control, but because he had found a partner in care and attention, someone who acted not for reward but for the good of others, and that changed everything. He reflected on the lessons of the past, the mistakes that had cost so much, the pride that had blocked understanding. Now he realized that humility and action mattered more than anything. The woman had shown him this truth in every gesture. Together, they worked to repair old mistakes, not by reclaiming wealth, but by creating a life that mattered. The children learned values of effort, patience, and compassion. The land became productive and healthy. The family grew stronger in ways that could not be measured by money alone. He began to share more with the woman, not just practical tasks, but thoughts and feelings he had kept hidden. He spoke of fear, disappointment, and hope. He admitted vulnerabilities he had never revealed to anyone else, and she responded with understanding and support. Through this openness, a new bond formed, one built on honesty and mutual respect, one built on action and care, one built on the recognition that the past does not define the present, and that trust can grow stronger through shared challenges. He also saw the impact on the children. They learned resilience through example. They learned kindness through observation. They learned the value of patience through consistent guidance. The home became a place of learning, growth, and quiet joy. The cowboy realized that the fortune he had hidden mattered less than he thought. The lessons of care, trust, and humility were far more valuable. The woman had shown him this, and together they had created a life that reflected these principles. Even as new challenges came, they faced them with confidence, no longer alone in the struggle, no longer burdened by pride or fear. They acted together, steadily, patiently, with courage. Found success in harmony and understanding. By the end of the season, he understood fully the past could not be changed, could not be erased, but lives could be rebuilt, families could be saved, and trust and love could endure. the cowboy felt a sense of peace, not because wealth was returned, not because mistakes were undone, but because he had found someone who had helped him and his family survive, someone whose actions had greater value than any fortune, and he knew that from this moment forward, the life they would build together would be guided by care, trust, and shared purpose. After the truth was revealed, the cowboy and the woman faced the next days with new understanding. Continued working side by side, the bond between them grew stronger. With each shared task, the family felt safer and happier than ever before then. Home became a place of trust, care, and quiet joy. The cowboy began to see the fortune differently. It was no longer a tool for pride or status. It was a way to support and honor the people who had mattered most. He considered ways to use it to improve lives without showing off. He wanted it to reflect gratitude, not power. He began small, repairing old structures on the land, providing better tools and equipment, ensuring the animals had everything they needed, helping the family with practical support rather than extravagant gifts. He learned that thoughtful action mattered more than grand gestures. The woman watched and guided. She encouraged decisions based on need and impact. She reminded him that care and consistency mattered more than speed or size. She influenced not by force but by example, and he followed willingly. The children learned from both of them. They saw how kindness and dedication created results. They learned that wealth without care was empty. They learned that effort, patience, and trust could shape a better life. They began to participate in the work with energy and pride. The cowboy felt a sense of fulfillment. He realized that life had taken him through hardship to teach lessons that money could never give. He understood that his fortune could only matter if it served others, and he resolved to use it wisely. Neighbors noticed the change. The farm thrived. The animals were healthier. The land was more productive. People asked questions, and he spoke simply about hard work and care. He did not reveal the fortune or past details. He let actions speak for themselves through all of this. The woman remained central. Her guidance, steady and quiet, her influence profound without show, had helped rebuild a family, a home, and a life. And he continued to honor her with attention, respect, and trust. Together they faced new challenges, weather, storms, illness, and unexpected difficulties, but they handled each with calm determination. Their teamwork strengthened the household. Each obstacle became an opportunity to apply lessons learned from past struggles. The cowboy also began to share his own skills more openly, not to assert power, but to support and guide. He helped the children learn practical tasks. He worked alongside the woman to improve the farm. He applied the lessons of patience, consistency, and humility he had learned from hardship. In her example, he noticed how their partnership inspired others, began to see the value of shared effort. They watched a household transform through care and attention, not wealth or status. It became an example of what quiet dedication could achieve. The cowboy reflected on the lessons of life. He understood that mistakes and losses had taught him humility and resilience, that the woman had shown him the power of action without expectation, that true wealth was measured by kindness, trust, and the ability to improve lives. He began to plan for the long term, not to expand wealth, but to create a foundation for stability and growth, to ensure that the family could thrive and pass on lessons of care and responsibility. Every decision considered and thoughtful, every action purposeful. The children grew stronger and wiser. They learned that effort and patience led to results, that trust and kindness mattered more than any material possession, that the home was a place of security and learning, and they felt gratitude for the people guiding them. The cowboy felt peace for the first time in years, not because the past had disappeared, not because fortune was returned, but because he had found a person whose actions reflected values he had come to cherish, and because together they were creating a life worth living. They worked together through the seasons, harvesting, repairing, building, teaching, and caring. Day strengthened, bonds, every challenge strengthened, understanding, every small success became a symbol of what could be achieved through trust and dedication. He realized that the woman had not just helped the family, she had helped him see life differently. She had shown that selfless action and quiet care had greater impact than wealth or pride, and that lesson was more valuable than anything money could buy. As years passed, the home flourished, the family grew strong and confident. Land prospered, and the cowboy continued to honor the woman who had changed everything by acting with the same consistency, care, and humility she had shown. Neighbors looked and learned quietly. Story of survival, care, and partnership spread without words. The household became a place of example and inspiration, not through display, but through steady action. The cowboy often reflected on the journey, the loss, the past, the mistakes, and the hidden fortune. Realized that true wealth had always been there in the presence of people who cared in. Trust and understanding built day by day in the actions that improved lives quietly, without recognition. The woman remained central to every decision, her guidance constant, her care unwavering, and he continued to honor her with dedication and attention, not as a ruler or master, but as a partner in a life built on values and trust. Together, they faced life fully, every season, every challenge, every small success. They built a household grounded in patience, care, and understanding, a family stronger than any fortune alone could create, and a life that proved that trust, kindness, and action mattered more than wealth. The cowboy finally understood the full measure of gratitude. It was not expressed in gifts or words. It was expressed in daily effort, in trust, in patience, in consistent action. He dedicated himself to living a life worthy of the example he had been shown, and the family thrived, safe, secure, and full of hope for the future. After several years, life settled into a quiet rhythm for the cowboy, the woman, and the family. Every day brought work and care. Every day brought moments of learning and small victories. The land thrived under attention and patience. The animals grew healthy and content. The children grew confident and capable. The cowboy felt a sense of calm he had not known before. The past no longer haunted him. The fortune remained a tool of support, not a measure of worth. He spent mornings tending the fields and repairs. He spent afternoons guiding the children and learning. From the woman, every day became a lesson in patience, effort, and trust. The woman remained a steady presence. She moved through the household and land with quiet efficiency. She noticed what needed care before it became urgent. She guided with gentle instruction. An example, her influence shaped the household without demand or show, and the cowboy continued to learn from her daily neighbors. Occasionally visited, they saw a thriving household and well cared for land. They noticed the children, active and healthy. They admired the way tasks were completed calmly and efficiently. They asked questions about farming and animals. The cowboy answered, simply focusing on effort and consistency. Shared knowledge without boasting, and they learned by observing the work and results. The family faced new challenges as always. Weather changed unexpectedly, animals fell, equipment broke, tasks multiplied, but together they handled each problem steadily. Every challenge became a lesson in teamwork, patience, and observation. No one felt overwhelmed because the work was shared and consistent. Cowboy found satisfaction in small achievements. Repaired fence, a new planting, a calm animal, a smiling child. Each success reflected care and attention. Each reflected the lessons learned. From the past and from the woman, he began to see that life was about the steady accumulation of small good acts, and not about grand gestures or displays of wealth. He continued to observe the woman, her attention to detail, her patience with children, her care for animals, her ability to remain calm when unexpected difficulties arose. He realized that strength came from consistency and thoughtfulness, not for sand. He applied these lessons to his own actions. The children began to take initiative. They helped with feeding animals, repairing fences, planting and harvesting. They learned through example how small, repeated efforts created results. They learned the value of trust and patience. They learned the joy of contributing to the family and the land. The cowboy felt pride in their growth. The woman continued to guide quietly, encouraged the children to notice small problems before they became large. She showed them how to plan work carefully. She taught them how to act with care without rushing or forcing. Her lessons were practical, but also moral. She taught resilience, attention, and humility through action. Seasons changed, the household adapted, storms came, and past crops flourished. Animals reproduced and thrived. Repairs and improvements continued steadily. The family grew confident in facing challenges. They learned that life required effort, observation, and cooperation, and that success could be measured in health and happiness rather than money. The cowboy reflected on his life. Fortune, he had hidden the losses he had suffered. He realized that all that mattered now was care, effort, and trust. He thought of the woman and how she had changed everything, not with wealth, not with pride, but with patience, consistent action, and kindness. Silently thanked her every day for showing him a better way to live. He also reflected on the lessons for the children, that work could be meaningful, that helping others created satisfaction, that trust and attention to detail mattered, that life was built one thoughtful action at a time. He hoped they would carry these lessons forward throughout their lives. Every day he worked alongside the woman. They repaired fences, tended animals, planned planting, and harvested crops. They taught the children practical and moral lessons. They celebrated small victories quietly together. They faced difficulties calmly together. Every day strengthened bonds and built resilience. Neighbors continued to notice the difference. They observed the household and land thriving. They observed the children learning responsibility and care. They admired the quiet efficiency and harmony. Some asked for advice on practical tasks and household management. Cowboy and the woman shared lessons with humility, and neighbors learned through observation and simple instruction. The household became a model of steady effort and care, not through display or wealth, but through consistent work and attention. Every challenge handled calmly, every small success noted and appreciated. Family grew stronger in confidence and ability, and the land continued to flourish. The cowboy thought often about the past. He remembered loss, mistakes, and the burden of pride. He understood that those experiences shaped his appreciation for care and patience. He realized that the fortune was useful only when combined with thoughtful effort, and that true wealth lay in attention to people and land. He continued to act daily with purpose. He guided the children and supported the woman. He managed tasks efficiently and calmly. Every action reflected lessons learned and values respected. He felt satisfaction in daily work and in seeing the family growth. Woman remained the central figure in daily life. Her example shaped behavior and choices. Her calm guidance created harmony. Her attention to detail prevented problems before they arose. Her patient care influenced both the cowboy and the children. Together, they faced storms, illness, and unexpected challenges. Together, they worked steadily to repair and improve. Together, they nurtured the children and the animals. Together, they ensured that the land remained productive and healthy. Every day strengthened bonds and understanding. The cowboy reflected on gratitude. He realized that expressing it was more than words or gifts. It was shown through attention, effort, and support, through teaching by example, through acting consistently with care and patience. He dedicated himself to living according to these principles. The household continued to thrive. Children grew capable, confident, and responsible. The land produced crops and supported animals, and neighbors learned through observation and simple advice. Family became an example of consistent effort, attention, and care. The cowboy felt peace and fulfillment, not because wealth returned or mistakes were undone, but because he had found someone whose example taught patience, attention, and care. Because he had built a household based on trust and consistent effort, because the family and land thrived under steady care. Every day he worked with purpose. Every day he guided and learned. Every day he appreciated the woman who had changed everything, and through daily effort, attention, and care, he created a life and family stronger than any fortune alone could achieve. Life where trust, patience, and effort defined true wealth. Years passed and life unfolded slowly but steadily for the cowboy, the woman, and the family. Each day brought work and care. Each day brought small victories and moments of learning. The land grew strong under their attention. Animals became healthier and more content. Children grew confident, capable, and curious. The household thrived in ways that were measured not by wealth, but by effort, trust, and attention. The cowboy continued to reflect On his past, the losses, the mistakes, the hidden fortune, he realized that all those experiences shaped his understanding of what mattered. He had learned that wealth alone could not save family or life, only care, effort, patience, and trust could create a lasting impact. The woman remained central to the household. Her presence steady and guiding, she noticed what needed attention before it became urgent. She guided actions gently and consistently. She showed through example how to manage work and life with care. The cowboy continued to learn from her every day, offered new lessons in patience, diligence, and humility. Occasionally visited, they observed a thriving household. They admired the care given to land animals and children they sustained. They asked questions about tasks and management the cowboy and woman shared. Knowledge simply without pride or boast, they taught through action and observation, allowing others to learn naturally. Then children began to take initiative. They helped with feeding animals, repairing fences, planting and harvesting. They learned that small repeated efforts created results. They learned the value of attention and consistency. They learned that trust and cooperation mattered more than money or status. Cowboy found satisfaction in everyday achievements: a repaired fence, a planted field, a calm animal, a smiling child. Each success reflected effort and care. Each success reflected lessons learned from the past, and from the woman he realized that life was a collection of small good acts built over time, not grand gestures or displays of wealth. The woman continued to teach without words. She guided actions quietly. She corrected mistakes gently. She celebrated small victories without fanfare. She demonstrated that strength was found in calm consistency. In care, she shaped the household without demanding attention or recognition. As the seasons changed, the household adapted. Storms came, and past crops flourished. Animals grew strong, and healthy repairs and improvements continued steadily. The family grew confident in handling challenges. They learned that life required patience, observation, and shared effort. And they learned that success could be measured in happiness, health, and growth rather than money. The cowboy often reflected on gratitude. He realized that expressing it was more than words or gifts. It was shown through attention, effort, and support, through teaching by example, through acting consistently with care and patience. He dedicated himself to living according to these principles. Every day became an opportunity to show appreciation. The fortune he once hid became a tool for stability and care. He used it to repair old structures, to buy better tools, to improve living conditions and support the family. The purpose was practical, not prideful. Every decision considered and deliberate. Every action aimed to create comfort and security. The woman guided the use of resources. She ensured that every investment was thoughtful. She reminded the cowboy that care and consistency mattered more than extravagance. She helped him focus on practical needs rather than appearances. Her guidance created harmony and efficiency. The children continued to grow under their care. They learned resilience through observation. They learned responsibility through action. They learned the value of patience and trust through daily experience. They began to contribute more meaningfully to the household and land. They understood that effort created results and that cooperation strengthened relationships. The cowboy observed the woman and learned humility. He saw how strength could be quiet, how influence could be subtle. He realized that power was measured not by control or wealth, but by consistency, care, and the ability to improve lives. He applied these lessons in guiding the children and managing the household. Neighbors noticed the household thriving. They saw a family working together calmly and effectively. They admired the growth of the children, the care for animals and land. They asked for advice and guidance. The cowboy and woman shared knowledge simply. They taught by example and observation. Household faced new challenges as always: illness, unexpected storms, equipment failures. Each problem was handled calmly and consistently. Each obstacle became a lesson in teamwork, patience, and observation. No one felt overwhelmed because work and responsibility were shared. The cowboy found joy in small victories. He noticed the satisfaction on the faces of the children, the calmness of animals, and the health of the land. Each success reminded him that steady effort and care created meaningful results. He realized that wealth alone could never provide this fulfillment. The woman continued to teach patience and attention. She guided the children in observing details. She encouraged thoughtful action and cooperation. She demonstrated that calm, consistent effort could prevent problems before they arose. She showed that teaching by example created lasting understanding. As years went on, the children became more capable. They handled tasks independently. They observed and learned from the cowboy and woman. They understood that life required patience, attention, effort, and care. They developed confidence and resilience. They began to assist neighbors and contribute to the community. The cowboy reflected on life. He understood that the past had taught him humility and resilience. He realized that the woman had shown him the power of consistent care and action. He recognized that true wealth was measured by trust, attention, effort, and the ability to nurture life he dedicated himself to living by these principles. The household continued to thrive. The land remained productive. Animals remained healthy and content. Children grew responsible and confident. The cowboy and woman acted consistently with care, patience, and understanding. Every day strengthened the household. Every challenge strengthened bonds. Every small success became a symbol of effective effort and trust. The cowboy continued to teach and guide. The children learned practical skills and moral lessons. They learned that effort and consistency mattered more than money or status. They learned that trust and cooperation created results. They understood that life was built through daily attention, and care. Neighbors continued to observe and learn. They saw the household functioning efficiently. They noted the growth and confidence of the children. They admired the health of the land and animals. They asked for guidance and received simple advice. They learned through observation and practical instruction. The cowboy reflected on gratitude. He realized that true gratitude was expressed through daily effort, through support, attention, and consistency. It was shown by teaching by example, by guiding and nurturing. He dedicated himself to living a life worthy of the lessons he had learned. The fortune became a tool for sustainable support, not a measure of worth. It was used to improve living conditions, provide practical tools, support the family, and ensure stability. Every decision aimed to create long-term benefit. Every action reflected care and thoughtfulness. The woman remained central. She guided with calm consistency. She shaped behavior and choices through example. She prevented problems before they arose. She nurtured the children and influenced the cowboy. Quietly yet profoundly, her presence created harmony, stability, and understanding. Children grew strong, capable, and responsible. They learned resilience, attention, and patience. They contributed meaningfully to the household and land they observed. The cowboy and woman and applied lessons naturally. They learned that effort and care were more valuable than wealth or status. The household faced challenges consistently. They managed storms, illness, equipment failure, and unexpected tasks calmly. They worked together to address every problem. Each challenge became a lesson in cooperation, attention, and observation. Each small success strengthened bonds and confidence. Cowboy reflected on his past. He remembered mistakes, losses, and pride. He realized that all those experiences had taught him humility, resilience, and understanding. He understood that true value came from attention, effort, care, and trust, and not from wealth. Alone, he continued to guide the children. The woman continued to guide him every day, offered lessons in patience, consistency, humility, and care. They acted with deliberate purpose to nurture the family, land, and animals. They faced difficulties calmly and effectively every day, strengthened trust and bonds. Neighbors learned by observing. They saw a thriving household. They noted the growth and confidence of the children. They admired the health of the land and animals. They asked for guidance and received practical advice. They learned the value of consistent effort, attention, and care. The cowboy and woman continued to act as a team. Every day they managed work, guided the children, and cared for the land and animals. They celebrated small victories quietly and consistently. They faced challenges calmly and effectively. Their partnership strengthened the household and nurtured growth. The cowboy reflected on life, gratitude, and wealth. He understood that wealth alone could not create fulfillment. He realized that consistent care, attention, effort, and trust were the foundation of meaningful life. He dedicated himself to living by these principles, Daily, the household continued to thrive. The children grew capable, confident, and responsible. The land remained productive and healthy. The animals remained content. The cowboy and woman continued to guide, teach, and act with care, patience, and attention. Every day strengthened bonds and built resilience. The cowboy often reflected on the lessons of the past and present. He realized that true wealth lay in the ability to care, to teach, to guide, and to nurture. He understood that effort, consistency, and trust created lasting results. He dedicated himself to acting daily according to these values. Through daily effort, the household maintained stability, and growth challenges were met. Calmly, successes were celebrated. Quietly, the children learned responsibility, patience, and resilience. The land and animals flourished. The cowboy and woman continued to act as partners in building a meaningful life. Neighbors observed the household they admired, the consistent effort, the calm management, and the growth of the children. They asked for guidance and received practical advice. They learned through observation and example. The household became a model of effective care, attention, and consistent effort. The cowboy reflected on the fortune. He realized that its value was in supporting daily life, not in measuring worth. He used it thoughtfully to repair structures, improve tools, support the family, and create stability. Every decision was deliberate and aimed at creating meaningful results. The woman continued to guide quietly. She shaped the household through calm, consistent action. She nurtured the children and influenced the cowboy with her. Example: she prevented problems before they arose. She created harmony, stability, and understanding. Children grew capable and responsible. They learned resilience, patience, attention, and cooperation. They applied lessons naturally and contributed meaningfully to the household and land. They understood that consistent effort and care were more valuable than wealth or status. The household faced challenges steadily. They managed storms, illness, equipment failure, and unexpected tasks calmly. They worked together to address problems. Each challenge became a lesson in cooperation, attention, and observation. Each small success strengthened bonds and confidence. Cowboy reflected on his past and present. He realized that losses, mistakes, and pride had taught humility and resilience. He understood that true value lay in attention, effort, care, and trust, not wealth. He dedicated himself to living by these principles. The household continued to thrive. The children grew confident and capable. The land remained productive and healthy. The animals were content. The cowboy and woman guided, taught, and nurtured with consistent care and attention every day, strengthened bonds and created resilience.